Welcome to the Fogwood Files, where fog lingers among the trees and the forest holds its secrets close. The Canadian Maritimes are a land of silence and shadow, where pasts dissolve into mist and voices echo without a source. Here, beneath the canopy of pines, people have witnessed things they cannot explain. Their words remain as fragments of a larger mystery, stories carried through the woods like whispers in the dark. Tonight, we open one of those accounts and step deeper into the ledger of the strange.
Case File 012, the Hopewell Pack. Date of encounter, summer 1975. Location, Hopewell, New Brunswick. Date of report, June 2025.
My name is not important. At the time of this encounter, I was 15 years old. It's been 50 years since the events on our family's farm near Hopewell, New Brunswick, but I can still hear the sounds they made, the way they circled, the way they communicated. I'm writing this because people need to understand that what happened wasn't hysteria or imagination. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a cougar. It was something older, smarter, and crueler. Back in 1975, my family ran a small dairy farm about 5 miles outside of Hopewell Hill, close to the marshlands. My father, Robert, was the kind of man who could fix a tractor with baling wire and a prayer. My mother, Margaret, ran the household and kept us boys, me and my older brother Daniel, from killing each other. Daniel was 18 then, strong, confident, always took charge when father was away delivering milk. I looked up to him more than I'll ever admit. The area was quiet, mostly farmland and thick woods that seemed to stretch forever. Nights there were a black ocean. No streetlights, and no neighbors close enough to see a porch light. We'd grown used to the sounds of coyotes, owls, and the occasional bear nosing around the compost. None of that ever scared us. But that summer, something new came to the edge of our property, and it wasn't anything we had heard before. It started with the livestock. Our cattle began to act skittish, huddling in one corner of the pasture at dusk. My father found deep claw marks on the barn door, too wide apart for any dog, too low for any bear. We thought maybe it was a rogue wolf, even though no one had seen wolves around Hopewell in decades. Still, we reinforced the fences, checked for tracks, and set up a single spotlight outside the barn. That first night, the light caught movement near the tree line. 4 shapes crouched low, just beyond the reach of the glow. My brother swore he saw one stand upright, taller than any man. My father brushed it off. Probably a couple of strays, he said. Or kids from our town trying to spook us. But no kid moved like that. By the second night, things got worse. The animals wouldn't eat. The dog barked itself hoarse and then wouldn't come out of the house at all. My mother said she heard breathing outside of our bedroom window. Not footsteps. Breathing. Heavy, wet like a pair of lungs too large to belong to anything natural. On the third night, we tried to prepare. Our father loaded his old .303 hunting rifle. Daniel carried the shotgun. I was told to stay inside with my mother, but when the howling started, 4 distinct voices, each different, each circling, I couldn't stay put. That night, my brother didn't come back from the barn, and everything that came after was buried under official reports, polite condolences, and the word bear. But it wasn't a bear. I know what I saw. The first night didn't start like a horror story. It started with curiosity. Around 9 o'clock, my father came in from the barn with a look that I'd never seen on his face before. Something between anger and disbelief. "Something's been tearing at the feed shed," he said. We grabbed flashlights and walked to the edge of the pasture. The air was heavy, like a storm was coming, but the sky was clear. Near the fence we found tracks. 4 sets. Each print was long and narrow, ending in claw marks that sank an inch deep into the soil. They weren't shaped like paws. They were shaped like hands. My father crouched beside them and muttered, "That's no dog. It's no cat either." When he stood, the night went still. The first time I'd heard it. A low growl that seemed to come from the trees, then repeat from a different direction. There were at least 2, maybe 3, communicating through those sounds. We backed off and went inside. My mother locked every door and drew the curtains. Daniel stayed by the window with the shotgun, keeping watch. Around midnight, we heard movement outside. Something large circling the house, brushing against the siding. The dog whimpered under the table. Then, a thud against the barn door, hard enough to shake the windows. My father raised his rifle, ready to go out, but my mother stopped him. "If it wants the cows, let it take one," she whispered. "You're not going out there tonight." He listened. That alone should tell you how wrong it felt. My father never backed down from anything. Around 2 in the morning, it went quiet. We thought they left. The next morning, one of the cows was missing. Not dragged off, just gone. The gate to the pasture was still locked. The grass was trampled, and there was a trail of blood leading towards the woods. My father said, "We'll track it later," but we never did. Because that afternoon, more tracks appeared near the back steps. Fresh, deep, and this time there were 4. The second night, none of us really slept. My father stayed up late at the kitchen table cleaning the rifle, his jaw locked tight. My mother kept pacing from room to room like she was trying to wear a groove into the floor. Even the dog, an old shepherd named Rex, refused to go near the door. He sat in the hallway, staring at the front window, growling under his breath. Daniel tried to make light of it. "Whatever it is, it's gone now," he said. "Probably moved on after last night's meal." But I saw the way his hands shook when he loaded the shotgun. He didn't believe his own words. At dusk, the smell came. That's the part I can never forget. It wasn't rot, not exactly. It was more like wet fur and copper, like blood left out in the sun. The air hung thick with it, drifting in through every crack in the wood. The cattle started bawling in the barn, crashing against their stalls. My father told Daniel and me to help get the cows back under control. We crossed the yard under the single spotlight. Everything outside that circle of light felt alive, like something was breathing just beyond reach. Inside the barn, the cows were frantic. One had broken its rope, another was bleeding from the gash along its flank. Daniel climbed the ladder to the loft to check for the holes in the roof, while I tried to calm the animals. That's when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong. It was like claws scraping against metal, slow and deliberate, coming from the tin siding near the hay bales. I whispered, "Dad?" He didn't answer. Instead, a shape moved past one of the gaps in the boards, a silhouette that stood upright, broad shoulders, and a head that seemed too long, too narrow, ending in points. Daniel looked down from the loft, eyes wide. "Did you see?" Before he could finish, something hit the side of the barn. Hard. The whole building shuddered, dust falling from the rafters. Then came the howl, a deep, guttural sound that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. Another answered from the trees. Then two more. And a fourth. My father fired a shot out the barn window toward the tree line. The sound exploded in the night, echoing off the hills. Everything went still for a few seconds, like the woods were holding their breath. Then, movement. Fast. Shadows darting between the trees, circling. We backed towards the house, rifles raised. My mother had the front door open, screaming for us to run. Just as we reached the steps, something moved through the tall grass behind us, too fast to be seen clearly. The light caught it for only in an instant. Fur, black and coarse, and eyes that burned amber like an animal's caught in headlights. My father fired again, but the thing was gone before the echo faded. We stayed awake until dawn, every window locked, every curtain drawn. Around 3 a.m. the howling started again. Not close, but not far either. It was like they wanted us to know they were still out there waiting. By morning, the pasture fence was down in 3 places. The tracks, massive, deep, and unmistakable, led to the creek behind the property and vanished in the water. We found what was left of the missing cow downstream, torn apart in no way a bear or cougar could manage. The rib cage had been split open clean, like it was pried apart by hands. That day, my father drove into Hopewell to report what was happening. The RCMP came out that evening, gave the place a quick look, and shrugged it off as animal predation. Said it was likely a black bear coming in from the hills. When my father showed them the tracks, one of the officers laughed and said, "Big dog, eh?" My mother begged them to stay the night. They didn't. When they left, my father told Daniel to board up the barn windows and set up traps along the back path. We worked until dark. That night, the howling didn't come from the woods. It came from the yard. I woke up around 11:40 to the sound of something tapping the window glass, soft, like fingernails. Daniel was already awake, sitting up in his bed, the shotgun across his lap. His eyes met mine, and his finger went to his lips. Then I heard it again. Tap, tap. It came from the kitchen this time. We crept down the hall, every floorboard sounding like thunder beneath our feet. My father was already in the kitchen, standing by the sink with the rifle aimed towards the door. The curtain was moving, something brushing against it from outside. Then came a low growl, deep, long. The window glass trembled with it. Rex started barking from the other room, but it wasn't the usual bark. It was panicked, desperate. My mother tried to quiet him, but he wouldn't stop. Then, suddenly, he yelped once and went silent. My stomach turned cold. "Stay here," my father said. He moved towards the door. Daniel followed him before I could grab his arm. Outside, the yard flickered, dim then bright again. The air was thick, like it was holding its breath. Then I saw them. 4 shapes standing at the edge of the property where the tree line began. Their eyes reflected the light, yellow and burning like oil lamps. They stood upright, hunched out, balanced, their arms long enough their hands nearly brushed the ground. My father raised the rifle. "Go on, get!" he shouted, firing a warning shot into the dirt. The sound echoed, but they didn't move. The light hit one of their faces for an instant, fur matted with mud, a snout slick with moisture, and teeth that caught the light when it opened its mouth. It smiled. Then, as one, they dropped on all fours and began to move. Fast. "Inside!" my father yelled. Daniel turned, but the one on the left was already at the fence. It leapt clear over, landing on 2 legs, with a sound like thunder. My father fired again, the crack lighting up the night. The creature staggered, snarled, but didn't fall. Daniel ran towards the barn shouting, "They're after the cattle!" "Daniel, no!" But he was gone, sprinting into the dark, the shotgun clenched tight. The others followed him, 2 darting across the field, the last staying near the tree line, watching the house. I swear I saw it tilt its head, studying us like we were prey it wasn't finished with yet. We heard Daniel fire once, then again, then a scream. Not short, not clean. It started human and ended in something like animal, like the sound had been ripped out of him. My father ran out after him. My mother tried to stop him, but he tore free and sprinted into the dark, yelling Daniel's name. The house fell into a terrible silence. Just me and my mother, the lamps flickering, the smell of gunpowder still hanging in the air. Then the scratching started. It came from the back wall, claws dragging slowly across the wood. Then another joined in from the other side of the house. They were circling. I peeked through the curtain and saw one standing near the barn, backlit by the weak glow of the yard light. It was taller than I thought. The fur across his shoulders was coarse and ragged. Its head was wrong, too long. The jawline heavy like a wolf's, but broader, almost human. It bent down to sniff the ground where Daniel had run, then it looked up, straight at me. Our eyes met through the glass. It smiled again. My mother screamed for my father. Something slammed into the wall so hard that a picture frame fell and shattered. We backed into the hallway as another thump hit the roof, heavy from footsteps, moving from one end to the other. Dust rained from the ceiling. My father burst through the door seconds later. His face was white, eyes wild. He was covered in blood that wasn't his. He grabbed my mother's arm and shouted, "Get to the cellar, now!" We barely made it down the steps before something crashed against the kitchen door above us. Wood splintered. We heard it sniffing, the sound deep and wet, and then claws on tile. It paced above us, growling, low, occasionally huffing like it was testing the air. Then, another sound. A second one outside the door. Then a third, then a fourth. They were all there. One of them let out a long, slow howl. The others joined in, overlapping until it sounded like the air itself was breaking apart. We huddled in the dark until dawn. None of us spoke. The howls came and went through the night, sometimes near, sometimes distant, always there. When we finally climbed out, the kitchen door was hanging by a hinge. The curtains were shredded. The rifle my father had left by the window was bent, the barrel warped like soft metal. We found Daniel's shotgun in the yard, twisted in half. His body was by the fence, near the same spot where the prints always stopped. His chest was open, his throat gone. The ground around him was black with blood. My father didn't say a word. He just sank to his knees beside what was left of him and stayed there until the sun was high. When the RCMP came, they called it a bear attack, said the injuries matched a large predator, probably starving from a dry summer. But the prints were still there, long, deep, and shaped like a man's foot, only wider with claws that gouged the soil. The RCMP said it was impossible. My father said nothing. That night, we didn't sleep. None of us did. We knew it was waiting just beyond the tree line, and we knew it would come back. We left the next morning. My father didn't tell anyone. He just told us to pack what we could fit in the truck, clothes, a few photos, and the old family Bible. My mother tried to take one last look at Daniel's room, but he stopped her. Outside, the sky was gray, heavy with rain. The fields were empty except for the broken fence and the torn up grass where the fight had happened. Before we left, I looked back at the barn. The doors were wide open, even though we'd shut them the night before. Inside the dim light, I thought I saw movement. Something tall, hunched, standing among the bales of hay. It didn't come out, it just watched. We drove away without speaking. The sound of the gravel under the tires was the only thing that kept me from braking. When we reached the main road, my father pulled over and got out. He stood there a long time, staring back toward the hills. Then he said quietly, "We won't talk about this again." And we didn't. The house sat empty for years. People said it was cursed. Sometimes I still dream about it, about the four shapes moving in the dark, circling, waiting. And then when I wake up, I can still smell that coppery air. Because whatever those things were, they weren't animals. They weren't men. They were both. And they remember where we lived. People say trauma twists the memory, makes you see things that weren't there. Maybe that's true. But I know what I saw. I know what took my brother. The papers ran a small article about a fatal bear attack near Hopewell. That was the end of it. No investigation, no search, no mention of the tracks. A few years later, a new family tried to buy that property. They stayed one season before leaving. Said the woods felt wrong, that they heard things moving on two legs around the barn all night. I went back once in '93. The house was falling in on itself. The barn half collapsed, grass tall as my shoulders. The windows were black and empty, like sockets in a skull. I don't know what I expected, but I found myself walking up the steps anyway. The front door was still hanging crooked on its hinges. Inside, it smelled of rot and dust, the floor soft underfoot. My boots left prints in the gray powder of years gone by. I walked the room slowly. The kitchen where we'd hidden. the cellar door still broken at the latch, the living room where my father had sit with the rifle across his knees. And then I went to Daniel's room. The air was colder in there, even with the daylight slanting through the cracks in the boards. His bed frame was still there, rusted and half collapsed. The old shotgun shell he'd used as a lucky charm was lying on the windowsill, green with corrosion. I sat on the edge of what was left of his bed for a long time. The wood creaked under my weight, and for a second, I could almost hear his voice, that easy laugh of his telling me not to worry so much. When I finally stood, I noticed something on the wall beside the window. Deep gouges in the wood, 4 long marks dragging downward. I ran my fingers over them. They were old, but not that old. Outside, the grass shifted in the wind. Or maybe it wasn't the wind. There were prints in the mud by the old cattle gate. Fresh, deep, spaced like something walking upright. I didn't go any closer. The woods were quiet that day, but I could feel eyes on me from the tree line. Watching. Waiting. If you ever find yourself near Hopewell Hill, and you hear something howling that doesn't sound quite like a wolf, don't go looking for it. Don't shine your light, and don't call out. Just go back inside and wait for dawn. Because when the dogmen hunt, they hunt in 4s. End of report.
This report submitted by the Fogwood Files, another account pulled from the fog and preserved in the records. If you'd like the next story to find its way to you, be sure to like and subscribe so you'll be here when the next fire is lit. Until then, stay close to the firelight, because in the woods, you're never truly alone, and something is always waiting just beyond the glow.